Does it seem like the expectations for expansion teams has kind of changed over the last 20 years? For example, since RSL came in, you look at a team like San Diego, I mean St. Louis recently too, coming in just looking like a ready MLS team.
Yeah, I think teams are starting to realize, like, when you build a team from scratch, the experience is paramount, right? And I think they have a good blend, but I think really their team is predicated upon their two pivots. They do an unbelievable job of controlling the game, which made it difficult to defend. The guys up front were mobile, and it just felt like tonight there's two teams that were egging the other team to come on and press. And anytime there was a break, there was a chance on goal. And like I've said for a few years now, is that the game's about moments. And we had a couple really good breakaways, actually, to go up 2-0. And when you don't capitalize in these kind of games, the momentum shift is so huge. But again, I think, they're a really good side. They're a really good side, and they played well tonight.
You mentioned a couple of missed opportunities there. They were really, really close, kind of uncharacteristic misses. One from Diogo comes to mind in particular. Is that just like in the heat of the moment, guy just kind of overthinks it, lets it slide? Or
it's tough to say. I think the great thing is that that he got in that position. And, the unfortunate part is that we, in both of those, we didn't hit the frame. And that's a bit disheartening. But again, it's not easy. Scoring goals is very difficult. But we've got to take those chances. They have to hit the back of the net if you want to win games.
Unfortunate loss tonight. Do we feel like we mentioned last week, we have a lot of depth in the back line? Do we feel like we're at the point where we have our starters for the back line, or we're still figuring that out?
Yeah, I think we're still figuring it out all over the field, really. Because again, I think there's been some muted performances. There's been some good performances. We have guys like Vera on the bench, right? And he's a fantastic player. So it's just now, I think as a group, really just, again, trying to find our identity as a group with quite a bit of change and chop in the early part of the season. It's really about solidifying that. And I think what solidifies it is results, really. It's because, again, I think at this part, you really want to build chemistry. But again, when you have depth, you got to utilize it in a way that makes sense for the team. So in other words, after a really good performance against Seattle, just went back with the same team. And again, if those goals go in, then we'll carry on. And now we got to really look at it, digest the game, watch the video, and also really examine our own performances as coaches as well, right? Because I think that's a big part of it as well. It's a collective, and we prepared a certain way. They did a couple things a little different. Did we make the adjustments quick enough? So there's a lot of reflection for the whole group. And like I say, when we win together, and when we lose, we've got to all eat it and really reflect upon our own performance.
And then before the half, you guys gave up that unfortunate goal. What was the talk in the locker room to come back to get that second goal?
Well, what we wanted to do is make sure that from a defensive standpoint, we were negating their central combinations, right? Because I think they do their two pivots really. They're one of the tougher teams that we've come up against from a defending standpoint. Their movement's really good. Their combinations are quick, and so we wanted to solidify that. And I think for the first part of the second half, we did a good job of that, and from that created some good opportunities. But again, I think this game was one of those games where it was going to be 5v5 on either side of the field, and the team that struck first was going to win the game. And it was that type of. It was one of the most hectic games I've been a part of.
Hey, Pablo. Seems like there was a more intentional decision with regards to Contreras playing a lot more forward in this game. Was that an intentional thing, and what tactically were you trying to accomplish with that?
Well, again, with their outside backs, they shift across the field, and so we wanted our wing backs to drop to then look forward. Again, every decision a player makes is up to the player. In other words, the tactics are just to express where their vulnerabilities are, every player has the ability to play what he sees, right? So we're not joysticking guys and saying, this is what you need to play. It's never that. It's these are the spaces, this is how we can occupy that space, and then it's decision-making time, right? So is a pivot free? No. And so we go 9, 10, pivot, center back. So those are it's like a check down in football, right? We want the most dangerous pass, second most dangerous pass, third most, or this is a possession pass, and that one's definitely a possession pass, right? So we don't want to play back. And I think tonight, especially when we can see that second goal, we started playing backwards more. And so again, it's like with a young group and a kind of a new group, it's understanding what the moment calls for. And whilst we want them to play back, when our left side center back has time and space, we want him to get forward. So again, these are all areas that we need to improve upon. But as far as the tactic of playing forward, it's every player has the autonomy to make the best decision he can for the team. So the way I explain it is, if you are in possession of the ball, you are responsible for the team in this moment, and make the best decision that you see.
And then again, speaking about the back line, last week we talked about, or last home game we talked about, there's a couple planned changes that were made on the back line. I think we made 3 changes on the back line. Today we made 2. Talking about team chemistry and building that, is that something we should expect to continue seeing, or should we be seeing the same guys playing?
To be honest, never want to change the back line in an ideal format. The only person on the back line that will be subbed regularly is our left back, and that's because the ask physically going from a left back to now being a left winger, because we rotate from a 4 to a 3, and it's the left back that has to get high and occupy, and that over 70 minutes it's unrealistic to ask. So that's the only sub. Jervain is still getting up to speed with his fitness, and Phil finished the game today, so that's a positive where he couldn't last week. But in an ideal world, the only sub we're making is the left back, and that's just to make sure that we continue to get threats on that left side on the highest line whilst recovering 50 yards to get in the back line and join the back 4. So that's the only sub we'll ever ideally make along the back line.
Pablo, one of the things that worked really well last week against Seattle was the diagonal balls, the diagonal passes, and the passes over the top that led directly to opportunities. That seemed to be lacking a little bit tonight. Is that more of a testament to San Diego and the way that they played, or is that something that lacked today from your side?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it partly had to do with the way they pressed, and to be fair, I was really shocked at how well they pressed even late in the game. It was quite phenomenal, the amount of energy and commitment they had to their press. So their shape definitely affected that. I think, and this is the interesting thing with tactics from a coaching perspective, is if you explain to them how to free up the space, and that's what you focus on that week, a lot of times that's the only thing they see, right? So again, just reflecting on my performances, a super experienced group, you could just say that, and they'll just play the best ball, make the best decision available. When you have a relatively young group or new back, whatever that case may be, is they try to see it every time. You see what I'm saying? So that's big learning for myself and the staff, is understanding the players that we have in the locker room, and how do we take what we typically do and not put so much emphasis on the tactic for that game, so that they can play more free, so that maybe they can hit more diagonals, because that's our strength. That's our jam. And they did a good job clogging up the midfield. Our pivots didn't get on the ball as much, so those were definitely available. But because they were looking for our wingbacks to drop to then play forward, we negated great opportunities to play the long diagonal.
Thanks, Pablo.
Pablo, positives from the game. What can you take from the positives? Looked like the offense was creating more, but just not finding the back of the net. Is that fair?
Like I said, this game was one of these games where it was like once you broke the initial press, it was going to the house. right? And so like there was a lot of great fast break opportunities. I don't think we executed on those. Obviously, I think we missed 3 big chances tonight. And when you miss 3 big chances, you're not going to win games, and that's as simple as that. So the opportunities we had were great. The execution on those opportunities left a little bit to be desired. And then I'd say just the overall effort was fantastic. I mean, guys like Brian and Namek in the middle midfield just put in an unbelievable shift, and Jay Glad. And to be fair, for me, the standout tonight was Rafa. I mean, he kept us in that game. And it just feels terrible to not give him what he deserved in this game.
And on the defense, concerns, 3 games, giving up 7 goals.
Yeah,
Thoughts on that?
Yeah, you know, I think they're different. The San Jose game, I think the 4 goals came from different situations. Obviously, when you're chasing the game, you're going to commit more numbers forward to try to salvage a point. So if you lose by 1 or you lose by 3, I mean, you're still getting 0 points, right? So, and I thought that was kind of the thing tonight. After we conceded that second goal, we left ourselves open because we were committing more numbers to the attack. So the most important thing for me is not to give up that goal before half. I mean, that's defending when chips are on the table and the game's, you know, in control. So the second goal obviously hurt us tremendously. And again, I think this was a very unique game. I don't think you'll see too many. Again, if the game's exciting for a coach, it's a terrible game. It's a terrible game. We want the game to be so boring. We have the ball. We control the tempo. We decide what this looks like. But that wasn't what the game was tonight. And so, we'll go back and look at both sides of the ball and make sure that we take a lot from this game. You know, I think it's easy to say, oh, we'll just push the one under the rug. When it feels like this, there's some real reflection. And you know, myself and the coaching staff will be the first to, you know, hold our hands up and make sure that we go back and prepare the group the right way against Houston, who got a great result today in Columbus.
And then, Pablo, going back to that first goal, I think it was 20 passes or something like that team put together to then put it in the back of the net. It seemed like a beautiful goal and seemed like things were going really well. What kind of changed and knocked it off course? Or how'd you feel about that?
No, I think it was a fantastic goal, and I think that's what we're capable of. Now, can we do that consistently with a team that's pressing the way they are? Are we finding the best pass to, like, again, like controlling the game? Sometimes I feel that we force too many balls, and again, we don't have to play backwards. We can play sideways and then find a penetrating pass. And I think in that sequence, we did a good job of moving their defense, but hurting them with a forward pass. And then the execution of the layoffs, the third man runs, it was really, really clean. And so we just have to find ourselves in that type of. And the way I explain it is, it's a feeling. When it starts moving quick and people are in good spots and people are clean with their touches and clean with their passes, it attracts more, and it's this vibe. And so then, if you don't get the ball for a little bit, then you have maybe players stepping out of position a little bit or playing more negative passes instead of looking forward and being brave in those moments. So again, that goal was probably the best goal we scored this year, but we missed 2 breakaways that could have put us in a much better situation than where we are today.
Pablo, bueno, nada más una pregunta. Ayer la MLS dio a conocer la cantidad de General Allocation Money que los equipos tienen. ¿Tú has hablado con la directiva? ¿Te sientes cómodo con el plantel que tienes o andan buscando alguna pieza más que pueda encajar en el equipo, sabiendo que muchos jugadores se fueron en el off-season?
Sí, no, estamos hablando todos los días. Estamos buscando otro jugador ofensivo para apoyar el grupo que tenemos. Demasiada presión con los 2 delanteros de muy poca experiencia para sumar tanta presión, imposible. Así necesitamos uno, a lo mejor 2 jugadores que nos apoya el grupo, el plantel, y estamos buscando en este momento.
Pablo, una última pregunta.
We're looking for an offensive player to help the group, especially the 2 up front who might be lacking in experience. So we might be looking towards
Pablo, una última pregunta. Después del partido hoy, para el próximo entrenamiento, ¿hay algo que te gustaría enfocarte más, ya sea el uno contra uno, el juego colectivo para llegar hasta enfrente, el aspecto defensivo? ¿Hay algo que te gustaría enfocarte un poquito más?
Sí, no, hay muchos aspectos del partido hoy día que yo creo que necesitamos mejorar. Y diciendo eso, yo creo que es un equipo raro que jugamos en contra esta noche. Hacen cosas muy distintas. O sea, hemos jugado contra Houston varias veces. Este equipo es la primera vez y son un equipo que lo armaron con mucha experiencia en el medio del campo y controlan el ritmo, controlan el balón de una manera con experiencia. Y eso, mira, los dos en el medio, el Emeka y Brian jugaron bastante bien, pero es un partido donde ganan experiencia porque es fácil en fútbol cuando hay un hombre y lo sigo, pero cuando hay tres, tengo que ubicarme en una posición para afectar los tres. Y eso son cosas que no enfrentamos demasiado en esta liga, pero yo creo que es un partido donde podemos crecer en la parte ofensiva, parte defensiva, cómo preparamos el equipo para el partido. O sea, hay mucho que podemos sacar de este partido para mejorar para el partido que viene.
This was a strange game in the sense that we've never played against this team. It's the first time we've played Houston, so we've seen what they could do. And even though they lack the experience, the players who were playing showed that this team has more experience than what it might seem. And overall, this can help us throughout the season, whereas today it might not have shown. But this is something that could definitely help us throughout the season in the long term.
Pablo. Pablo, ¿sientes que en este partido has tenido muchas oportunidades de gol y no se han concretado? ¿Crees tú que te equivocaste en algo, en mantener algunos jugadores que debían haber salido antes y que no estaban en su momento, o esperabas algo?
No, mira, para mí, los jugadores que estaban en la cancha crearon esas oportunidades para marcar el segundo gol. Y cuando tenés 2-1 contra 1 con el arquero, eso siempre debe ser gol. Y esta noche no nos tocó. Y si no mete esas oportunidades, imposible ganar el partido, porque esas fueron las oportunidades que nos dieron. Así, tenemos, como dije, tenemos que mejorar, tenemos que seguir creando esas oportunidades, pero al fin de día tenemos que marcar esos goles para cambiar el sentimiento del juego. Ahora si estamos 2-0, nos relajamos, empezamos a usar el cerebro un poco más. Cuando meten el primer gol, ahora estamos 1-1, empezar a usar el corazón y quiere hacer de más. Cuando un partido controlado, cuando mete los goles que debe meter, empezar a usar el cerebro porque además como los jugadores se sienten más cómodos. Es un partido de cerebro, pero también de emoción, y uno siempre afecta al otro.
The players on the field definitely created those chances. Whenever you're one-on-one with the keeper, that needs to end in a goal. And throughout the season, we need to be more efficient with those opportunities so that we can change the attitude on the field, so we don't kind of get relaxed, and so we can build upon those leads and those goals that we do score throughout the season.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Pablo.